Hi
Good.
there, Haley.
How are you?
I'm good. I missed a session that we were supposed to do 2 weeks ago, and you have no idea how much embarrassment I feel when I do something, not just do something wrong, but inconvenience somebody that I care about and not make an appointment that I promised to make. I get very self-conscious. And I thought it might be a good topic for us because, as you know, I'm working on my memoir, uh, A Prince of a Boy, How One Gay Catholic Helped Change the World. And I'm at a chapter in which I'm talking about two things for which I felt embarrassment. The first was that for many years, you know that I've gotten in my 50 years hundreds and hundreds of letters and phone calls asking for help,
Mhm.
just hundreds of them. I used to, and in the beginning, they were all typed letters. So, I typed letter back, right? So, Cornell's Human Sexuality Archive has 60 boxes of
Wow.
letters. Yeah. Files. So, and I answered every single one. So I had a young woman contact me with just a really horrifying story. She had seen me on television, uh, talking about growing up gay and lesbian. And she wrote to me and said that her father had died of AIDS and that she was living with her homophobic grandparents, who were the parents of the dead gay son, and how hard it was for her. So we carried on a very close relationship for over a year. We would write letters, talk on the phone. She sent me an Afghan. I sent her roses on her high school graduation. Uh, I put her in a book that was about to be published. And just prior to it being published, I called my friend in Detroit, whose firm had a investigator. And my friend called me and said, Brian, she exists, that name and at that address, but she's 28. She's not 18. And I was mortified that I had given all of this time. And Ray would say, Brian, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. This is going on. There always seems to be one more thing.
Mm.
She didn't ask for money. She only asked for time and attention.
Mm.
So I felt embarrassment by that. But what did it lead to was uh, an awareness of my codependency and my need to be needed.
Mhm.
That was really an extreme example of pushing anybody away who tried to tell me that I was making a mistake because I wanted to take care of this 16, 17, 18-year-old girl who was all alone in a homophobic setting. And she was a good storyteller. Uh, so I have another story, but let's stop there. Give me what thoughts come up for you and what questions
I think, we
on
start
this.
off sort of the purpose of embarrassment, the helpfulness of embarrassment. And I think really looking at sort of what causes the embarrassment. And I think a lot of the time that embarrassment always comes down to some way that we look at ourselves and sort of the validation that we're seeking outside. And I think for me, there's moments in my life where I don't even want to have the flashback because I'm so embarrassed about them.
Yeah.
That really is, the question I have to ask myself in terms of healing that embarrassment. is really, who cares? Like, so what? And I
Yeah,
think,
I really identify with the first couple things you said. One was that it's coming from within and a personal judgment, and it's worrying about the reaction of others to what we did.
and I think,
I think that's really good.
yeah, and I noticed this morning, it's interesting that you're picking this up, but I noticed this morning, I was happy that somebody else was embarrassed. I could
Ah,
see it in myself where I was like, oh, they're not perfect. It
I
makes
good.
me kind of relax and be like, feel like I can be more myself because they're not perfect, because they just did something that if I had done that, I would have been embarrassed. But seeing
Yes.
them do it, I'm like, oh, you're perfect. You're not as perfect, or you're pretty normal. We can relax now.
Yeah, and you know what? They acknowledged whatever it was that they did for which they're embarrassed, which was a gift to you, right? Because there was a second thing that happened for which I felt embarrassed, and I'm putting it both of them in this book. And I say, why am I telling you these stories that make me cringe? One, because I want this book to be authentic,
Right.
real. And two, I learned lessons from both of these experiences that were really important for my personal growth. You know, actually, in one of the situations, I quit drinking and haven't had a drink in 30 years. And I only used to drink 2 glasses of wine. That's all at night. But I counted on them. I
Mhm.
depended on them to calm me down. What I learned, Haley, was that what I was really addicted to was the sugar in the wine, because
Mm.
I started drinking orange juice at 5 o'clock, and that sugar stopped the hunger that I had. So that was pretty cool. But so one embarrassing thing caused me to look at how I depended upon drink, and the other on my need to examine codependency
Mm.
and what boundaries I was setting. So I think good things come out, and as you say, my including them in the book is going to help someone say, well, at least he's not perfect.
And I honestly felt a little, this morning when that happened, when I was like, oh, I'm glad they're embarrassed. A part of me was like, that's awful. That's awful that you're happy somebody else is embarrassed. Um, but I think, embarrassment is such an interesting word, and it's such an interesting experience, because very rarely do we allow embarrassment to make us feel good. We immediately go into some kind of punishment, disciplining behavior. And it's even like, if you look back after 5 years, you still have that cringe, which is still the punishing, sort of disciplining behavior.
Yeah.
It's, should we have embarrassment, or should it be one of those things that we let go of? And I think the more that you're present, and obviously you need your life and you need experiences to learn, to grow, and to become more present, the less chances of you being embarrassed. I'm not,
But
they're not removed. There's just less
right.
chance of you being embarrassed.
My best friend who died in a car crash, but my best friend for many years was a sex ed teacher in high school. And when she was talking about the power of sex over us, she um, she reminded her students of a cartoon character, Woody Woodpecker. Did you have Woody
Yep.
Woodpecker? And okay, so Woody Woodpecker is outside doing important things, hammering and sawing, and a female woodpecker walks by and flaps her eyelashes at him, and his eyes pop out, his head opens up, and his brain falls out. And that was me. I completely, in a similar situation, lost control of reason, right? My prayer, there was no prayer life involved in it. I experienced for the first time in my life jealousy. And it was a 5 alarm fire jealousy. And it was embarrassing to me once I got through it
Yeah.
to think that I had lost such control.
But I think, you know, what's the difference between embarrassment and hindsight?
And what?
Hindsight. Because I
Yeah.
think it's almost the same thing. It's an illusion. And I tell so many people about hindsight, and I feel like a lot of people, a lot of us need to realize that hindsight is an illusion. It's not true. There's nothing you can do about it. Because it's, you know, in those moments where we are trying our best and we're not quite sure which way to go and we don't feel like we have control, we're just doing our best with the information that we have right there and then. And that creates the growth that we can then look back as a much better person, as a person more control, be able to look back and be like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. And I think it's, you know, I think it is part of the growing, and it is the part of knowing and trusting yourself and being gentle with yourself, because I think that's the forgiveness. We have to forgive ourselves for those moments of embarrassment. They only
Now,
become embarrassing once we've gone through them and realized a better way of dealing with things.
okay. So in the AA or any 12-step program, they talk about making amends, right? And I find it important to me to acknowledge with the person or persons that I screwed up with, that I acknowledge it to them, you know, even if it's years later, and apologize for my behavior at the time. That's for me a cleansing experience. What happened? So let me tell you what happened. There were two there were two guys who were friends of ours and neighbors in Atlanta, and one of them died fairly quickly of AIDS, and the other one took refuge in raising my stable relationship. Initially, it was just talking to us, and then it was being held by us, and then it turned into a sexual relationship, and that's where my brain opened up and my fell out, because I
Yeah.
was totally I was totally out of control. I was wanting to make it a threesome. I was wanting and really worked at it. You know, who's going to sit in the back seat? Silly question like that. And so it ended. And years later, I connected with the guy. I said, I'm so sorry. And he said, you know, don't be. He said, I'm the one that sought refuge in your relationship, because what I really needed to do was mourn the death of my partner, right? So how do you feel about amends?
Personally, I think it's important to acknowledge one's behavior, but I think it has to be a journey within first. I think we're all very much in the habit that we say sorry or we apologize before we've even reflected on what caused the apology, and we've even decided what changes do we need to make so that we don't do that again. So I find many apologies empty. I'm almost like, please don't even apologize if you have no idea, if you haven't taken the time to figure it out yourself and also forgive yourself. I think the forgiveness needs to happen first before there's an apology, before there's amends, and that forgiveness is with self. And I think that really powers up an apology. I think if the opportunity comes in your life where you have the ability to be able to speak from a place of neutrality and be able to talk to somebody and say that, to this day, this is still bothering me, and I just want you to know that I noticed it. I think it's important to be able to express that, but you also have to read the other person and make sure that they're ready to, and willing to hear it. Because
Yes.
sometimes, to your point, when you make amends, it's a cleansing for you. Making amends, an apology, I believe, when we speak it to other people, should be the benefit of the other people. It should give them some kind of openness or some kind of compassion. So
Like me missing
we have
like
to,
me missing our podcast two
yeah.
weeks ago. I was working on my book. Uh, I was so focused on it that I lost all sense of time. And so I acknowledge why it happened, but it was very important for me to have you know that I was aware that I was wasting your time.
But you won't.
And
So I think that that's where it's important too, is that there's your feeling in this, and
yeah,
you're sort of putting yourself in the corner and punishing yourself and disciplining yourself and telling yourself a narrative. Meanwhile, I'm over here going, well, I'm sure Brian's busy and now I have time to actually do something else. So 10 minutes later, I'm doing something else. And
okay.
it's, I think there's a feeling that you're wasting somebody's time. I go into that situation if there's money involved, or I know that they could be doing something better with their time, you know. But when it's with friends, and especially people that I know and they know me, if there's a lateness to a call or a complete, like, hey, we had a call scheduled, but you missed it completely, I always tend to feel like there's a good reason for that. It's not malicious in any form. So sort of 10 minutes later, I'll usually give people 10, 15 minutes. I'm like, no problem. Moving on to the next thing. And I think for me, time is so precious. So it's almost like you gave, things work out very synchronistically, very much in divine timing. So when those kind of things happen to me, I'm always like, perhaps there's something else I should be doing. Perhaps something that I've been procrastinating on, and the universe is almost like saying, you're not going to speak today because you need to do this.
That's very healthy. If someone sets up a call with me, I schedule my whole morning around that call. Even cleaning up the yard, which I do every morning, how much time I allow myself to spend on that, get in the house, take the fastest shower I've ever taken, get cleaned up and get in front of that screen and then have it not happen. It's not that I get upset with the person, but the situation, because I say to myself, well, I would love to have had more leisure time in the shower or in the yard. But I agree with you that, okay, so whatever reason they didn't call, I've got things to do.
And I think there too is the hindsight. It's only in the moment that you're sitting on the call that you're looking back going like, oh, well, I could have done this. I should have done this. It's hindsight. It's an illusion. There's nothing you can do about it except be like, all right, this isn't happening. Perhaps I'm supposed to be doing something else. And for me, I think living in Mexico has really helped me to chill out.
Yeah.
Things not going exactly as I planned or expected.
Yeah.
It's still, very important to me that I'm punctual, and I'll do the same thing for you. If I have a call scheduled at 9, short of extenuating circumstances, I will be sitting in my chair at 5 till 9, ready for the call.
Yeah.
But I am able, and I definitely credit this to Mexico, I'm able to sort of ease out of it if it doesn't happen, or to be able to kind of say, well, there must be a good reason for that. That being said, when it comes to clients, and if they're a no-show or 5 minutes before the call, they tell me that they can't make it, I allow it to happen once. After that, I charge.
Yeah, yeah. I did the same, but they were given 2 weeks. If you don't cancel within 2 weeks, you have to pay, because otherwise I could have scheduled someone who would
Yeah,
pay me.
yeah.
Uh,
That's
and
where it's
most,
more of a
most of
time is money kind of situation. And I
yeah,
think it's a respectful thing too, because the clients, I give them one chance, but if they do it repeatedly, it just shows me that they're not really finding our time helpful or productive. It's not a priority for
yeah.
them.
Can we talk a bit about hindsight and you saying that there is no such thing? What, just so that we're on the same page, uh, uh, when you tell your story, for instance, in AA, you're talking about things that happened in the past, right? From which you've gleaned an awareness. Is that not hindsight?
I think there's a difference between learning and hindsight. For me, hindsight is being able to look back and saying, I should have done this differently back then.
Okay.
And having that guilt and that heaviness of, if only I could change it.
Yeah.
To me, that's hindsight. And
It's
for me,
judgment about
it's the
it's
judgment.
judgment
And
about
it's
what you did then based on where you are
where
now.
you are now,
Right.
which is
Yeah.
an illusion. We can't change the past. We can absolutely learn. And that's where I think forgiveness is, be able to say, the way I behaved 5 years ago was the best I was doing then. It was shoddy, but look where I am now, and look what I'm doing today, and look how different the behaviors are. Look how different my life is. Boom, leave it at that.
And those last things you said, you're saying to yourself, not to the other person, look what happened with me.
Yeah.
Because, then we're still looking for approval from the person that, even though I did that to you, I'm now this full, enlightened. Yeah.
Yeah.
We say that to ourselves,
And I think
that we've,
it's important not to be the contradiction. Because if we're looking for amends, my personal take on this is that if we're looking for amends from other people, it should be to help them feel better, to give them information they need on their healing journey. It's got nothing to do with us. So if we're going to people and making amends because we're going to feel better, we've still got work to do. Because that's completely codependency, that's completely seeking validation from somebody else that, okay, now they forgive you, you can move on now.
you use the term, my behavior is contradictory. Is that right?
My motto, my personal mantra,
Yeah.
don't be the contradiction.
Tell me, say more, because you explained it when we first started talking. What you don't want to do is behave against what you believe is the right way to do
Yeah,
things.
it's aligning your words and your actions. Walk the talk.
Yeah.
And for me, if I'm going to take my personal development very seriously, and part of my motivation for that is to be the best person I can be and therefore inspire other people and to care about my impact on other people, I need to make sure that I'm doing everything I say.
Do you use, one of our morning mantras is, I'm going to work hard today to be the person I aspire to be. And I asked Ray this morning, does that come up for you during the day? Do you ever say that to yourself? Because I do, when I'm in a situation where I have a choice of behavior, uh, I, I love it that I say, is this the person you aspire to be? and it guides my behavior. Ray said the serenity prayer is what, guides him through the day. But I like reminders, and they have, one of the things people assume is that there's a consistency to awareness, and awareness takes work. It doesn't just happen. You need time to meditate. You need time to think about things. So I love morning aspirations because they help me avoid situations in which I'd be embarrassed. How's that for tying them together?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I use them. And I agree with you. Awareness only comes once you make that a priority. And to make it a priority, you have to work on it. You have to take the time, you have to do something with it. Once you have awareness, it's not just I have awareness, move on. It's I have awareness, what's the best action I can take now with this information? That takes work. That takes prioritizing your morning and making sure that you have time for your meditation to set your intention. I encourage all of my clients to put reminders on their phone that say, come back to your intention. What is your intention today? And to do that at least 3 times throughout the day, because that starts to create the habit of what's the whole point of today? What am I trying to do today? So I'm very much similar to both you and Ray, where I will set my intention in the morning, and throughout the day, I'll just keep coming back to it and checking in with myself and being like, where are you? Are we still here? What are we doing? And there's, I think the more that you create a habit around it or a routine around it and prioritize it, it comes in different ways. So there's sometimes I will observe myself sort of feeling a judgment, and I'm like, whoa, let's stop for a second here and let's make sure that we're back in line. Or I'll just feel like I'm off. I know I need to come home and sit down. It's almost like these little mini timeouts that you have to put yourself into to be that best person, to be who you really are.
That is particularly relevant in our household right now. The puppy arrived, and he's very cute. And but he has very sharp teeth, and the first day after he arrived, I took him outside and he jumped into the swimming pool twice, and I had to get in clothed, because he didn't know where he was going. And so I pulled him out, all right, cleaned him up. The next day he jumps in the river.
There's problems with
we tell people don't go in the river. It's not safe. The water's not clean. And so I jumped in the river. Scratched the hell out of my right leg on the barnacles, on the post of the dock. And but I had to, because he didn't know where he was going. He was just swimming as fast as he could. Now, fortunately, this breed is called the Einstein of dogs, so he hasn't gone into the river again.
So he's learned.
In fact, he learns. But Ray told me yesterday that he just read that this breed, Aussie Doodle, is a land shark as a puppy, which means those sharp teeth want to get something. And so you have to have lots of toys around and dog chews, right? So being your best self in a situation in which you take turns watching this dog, the puppy, because he's only 13 weeks old.
So sweet.
And I keep yeah. And I keep reminding myself, watch him, watch what he looks at, because he has green eyes, which is very unusual. And watch, because he's watching. Our vet said, you need to know how smart this dog is, because it looks to see if you're looking at him while you're petting him. If you're petting him and looking away, he knows that.
Yeah. Sweet.
And so I'm fascinated with the learning, watching an entity take in the world. You know, I lifted him up on the second or third day to see a red hibiscus that was in full bloom, you know, because it was up. He couldn't
Yeah.
see it at puppy level. And it's kind of fun to introduce a new thing to everything.
Yeah.
Hoses, what's ours? You know, where's this water coming from? Do I like the water or don't I like the water? You know, when it's being sprayed at me, I don't think I like that.
Sweet. I love, and I think we, that's the beauty of having younger things, whether it's a human or an animal around, because it reignites that part of you, that wonder, that curiosity. And it is the presence in this beautiful world that we live in.
Yeah.
And I have a lovely client that's now traveling through Argentina, and she left college and she's taking some travel time. And she's like, every day she'll just send me a message and she'll be like, I'm just blown away by nature. She's like, I'm looking at ice. What's exciting about ice? But I'm speechless. And I think that's what we're really meant to be here for, is to be present, is to be able to look at stuff and just be speechless, just like the puppy is. Just look at stuff and be like, what is that?
Yeah.
What do I do
Yeah.
with it? Do I like it? Do I not like it? And I think, whether I like it or not like it, that's not necessarily judgment, that's just discernment.
Yeah. And it's easier to make decisions, I think, as a puppy than it is as a
We have a lot of
75-year-old.
leeway.
Yeah, because you don't have a job. Your job is to just be who you
You
are,
don't have to be
right?
an adult.
Yeah, everything is done for you. You take a poop, they clean it up. You
Food is there.
know, and so as hard of work as it is, especially with me trying to get my book out, as hard of work as it is, it's a fascinating
How exciting.
experience. And I'll be 90 if it lives 15 years. I didn't want to grow into my older age without a dog. So he's going to provide Ray and me a nice distraction, something,
Or
because we
perhaps
can't
not a
afford it.
distraction, a reminder to be fully present.
Yes,
Be back
exactly.
from distraction.
Exactly. A distraction from the things that are unimportant,
Yeah.
to focus on the things that are. Somebody else might not think they are, but for me and for Ray, giving love uh, is such a wonderful experience that I don't have to travel, to have the right attitude about it. I'm jealous of your time in Mexico. Everyone's real. I am. Haley, you probably agree with this, but I don't know how much time you spent in the States, but that most Americans change their attitude when they leave the country and live in another country for a while.
Yep.
And they think, oh my God, this is so different.
That's not that great.
It's what you mean, living
Yeah.
in the States?
It's a
Yeah.
it's a hard life.
And you don't, you grow, it's like the frog put in the pan of water. You don't realize
No.
that it's getting hotter because you get used to it,
Yep.
right?
And it's still
You
like
get,
you you know, the more that I'm out of the US now, it's been 3 years since I left the US completely. I don't see myself going back to the US anytime soon. I have no desire to move back to the US for many reasons, but primarily just because I realize how hard life is there. And I say that, I have friends that most of my friends are probably upper middle class. So we would assume that they have an easier life. They don't.
no,
They don't. And it's really it makes me sit and think and really thank myself for all of the decisions and thank sort of the divine interventions and synchronicities that got me here, because my life is so easy. It's so easy. And an example of that, I have one of my best friends is going through a bit of a health crisis, and to see the right doctors and to get the right help, it's taking her 3 months, and she feels awful in the 3 months, but she can't do anything because she has to wait to see a doctor to get a referral. They have a different opinion, and it's all covered by insurance. She's not having to pay for it, but she's paying with her time and her lack of being able to be present because she feels awful. In Mexico, that would be done in a day.
um,
It would be done in a day, and you have fantastic healthcare. And it's just, being with her through her journey and trying not to be like, just come to Mexico. It makes me really super, super grateful for being here and wanting, to be in that place of presence with so much joy and gratitude of, wow, it's an easy life. I do have time to see if that hibiscus is flowering, or I do have the peace within me to be able to be like, my God, the clouds look good today.
yeah, yeah. I,
It's
I
a
think you
very
can
different
live here
life
and
in the
still,
US.
you can live here and feel uh, everything you're feeling. I have the ability to feel if I don't let the world get in the way. Uh, one of the, we've really isolated ourselves in the midst of this big town on a river with landscaping and fences. And so we're very, very private, and the house meets every need. So I feel like I have the opportunity to have an easy life. Uh, I choose to make it busy, by deciding to write a book or
I get a
deciding to get
puppy.
a puppy. Yeah, yeah. Um, uh, but I'm excited by both.
It's
The
and I,
book is really,
to each their own. We're not looking to make judgments. We're just discerning, just like the puppy is. I like to jump in the water. I don't like it sprayed at me. Doesn't mean I
yes,
like the water.
yes, yes, yes. Yeah. He hasn't been in the pool since he jumped in the first day. Uh, but we're going to get into the pool and invite him in because they need lots of exercise. And that would be a great way for him to,
Yeah.
get his exercise. Uh, I'm, ang- I'm anxious for you to meet him. Uh, I know you come to Miami occasionally,
I
and
honestly, it's been almost a year since I was in the US.
is that right?
Yeah.
Well, it might
It
happen,
will happen at
and
the
you'll
right
meet,
time.
yeah, and you'll meet Sebastian, and
Lovely. Yeah,
yeah,
the traveling thing is very interesting because I'm used to traveling every month, and I haven't left San Chris since June. No, May, since May.
since May.
Since May, and I haven't had, like, now I'm sort of planning a little weekend away, but I haven't had any inkling to travel, to leave. I've just been super, super happy, as you say, in this little heaven that I've created, and really being in the place of just soaking it up and breathing without having to think about slow down your breath, calm down. It's more of a, wow, my breath is really easy.
Do you have you read of or heard of other cultures that you want to experience? I mean, they say
In the
Norway,
world or in Mexico?
people in Norway say they're the happiest people in the world. I don't want to move to Norway.
I would love Norway, just I don't think I would survive the weather, the winters. I'd be a summer
Yeah,
Norwegian.
yeah, yeah.
I think that was part of my motivation to travel so much earlier on, was to experience those different cultures and to experience how it felt. And I feel like it's just different languages. We're all saying the same thing, just in a different language, and we call it something different.
Yes.
It's a that being said, even though it's the same thing, it feels different in every place. Like Norway feels different, like being in Norway and being in that like slipstream of calm, and that slipstream of the way that they move through life is very different than the Mexican way. They're doing the same thing, it's just a different way of it feels, and it's the colors are different and the smells are different, if that makes sense. It's the same
It
thing.
does make sense. It does make sense. And, you know, the Tao Te Ching, which, we read daily over and over and over again, he asked the question, what difference does it make, that you hear the crow of a bird in the neighbor's yard? You're perfectly fine right where you are. You do not need to go someplace to have an experience. It's all right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're not missing out. The whole of life is being who you were intended to be and not more, right?
Yeah. And right now.
Yeah. It keeps reminding you that you use things for their purpose, but not try to make them do something that is not their purpose.
And I feel like that's a lot of what traveling means to people. They travel to find their purpose. And I say that confidently because I did that. I thought that traveling, I would eventually find my place. And I would eventually calm down, or it would click. If I just kept traveling, I'd find it. It was in Mexico. You know how many times I came to Mexico before I traveled through Europe and everything? Completely bypassed Mexico because I had this expectation that it was somewhere else. And I think that's sort of the catch with traveling. You're always looking for somewhere else. You're seeking. It puts you in that mindset of seeking. To be able to now sort of back out of that mindset and just stay in Mexico now, where for the entire summer, I had maybe a tiny bit of FOMO when my friends were in Greece or in Europe, tiny bit of FOMO. But when I was like, well, if you feel bad about this, book a ticket, I was like, I don't want to leave. I'm good right here. Like, I feel like right here is good for me.
It feels to me, and I only know this small part of your world and those cool hanging things. I can't take my eyes off them. But don't buy any for us because I wouldn't know where to put them. But I love the measure background. It feels like you're in a really good space.
I'm very happy here. And I was
part of it is your age. When you were younger, you were more interested in checking everything out like the puppy, right? But you're at a point right now of maturity where you're able to breathe and not keep questioning whether you made the right decision.
Which is the
Am I
hindsight.
right? Right.
It's that maturity of realizing that everything I did brought me here, and everything that happened brought me into this place, and this is exactly what I've been asking for. I've been asking for, I don't want to work to breathe. Now I'm like, wow, I don't even have to work to breathe. You know, I've been asking, like, when will it get easier? When will I just feel it? I feel it now. So,
And when you say, I ask, you're asking yourself.
well, I asked a good 10, 15 years ago for the life that I'm living now.
But you created the life you're living now.
I lived it to get to it.
Yeah.
Had to.
What I'm saying is that asking the Tao or God or the universe for something is really asking yourself
True.
to be in the mindset all the time, right?
All the time. To
Yeah,
take the steps towards it.
if I ask for more patience, right, I'm creating my own reality of more patience.
Yeah.
It's not as if there's a group of judges in the sky who say, all right, we've gotten this request for patience. You want everyone put up your hand if he gets it.
I mean, I think you and I are on the same page. I don't believe that that's how this whole human thing works. I
Yeah,
realize that
yeah,
there are people that think that that's what happens. I think it's within us. And you know, it is the potential within us. Our full potential is patient. Our full
yeah.
potential is loving. And it's, you know, I've had this same goal since 2016. I wrote it down in a cafe and I was like, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to go. And I didn't put any time around it. I didn't put a specific country, although in the journey I thought, oh, this must be the country. No, this must be the country. No, this must be the country. Meanwhile, it's this country. But it's always been, I want to be happy. I want to be peaceful. I want to feel the peace. I want to be healthy. I want to feel successful, that I had these goals and now I'm living them. Same goals the entire time. Nobody gave them to me. I've been helped and I've had to learn how to accept help from other people, because that was also my doing, in terms of, there's an opportunity here. Do you have the courage to go for it, or are you going to be afraid of it? So I very much believe, you know, creation isn't the knitting and the doing. Creation is the being. To have the patience, to have the silence, to listen to your heart that says, just sit for a moment and look at the hibiscus. Then we'll have a chat. Then you'll know what to do.
Yes. Yeah. Do you remember what you wrote on that piece of paper?
Yeah, it was, so the four things that I think there are four, is health, happiness, wealth, and success.
And you have all four.
I'm always asking for more, because I think that's part of us moving into potential. Everything I need, I have. And if I feel like I need something, I can go and get it. To me, that's all of them.
Yeah. I think contentedness, gratitude, makes everything you have enough.
Yeah. And it's to each their own again, you know, to some people, it's not enough. For me, you know, it's, wow, how lucky am I that, look at everything that, like, honestly, if I need something, I can go and do it. Do I need to travel to Europe? No. Do I need to have like a 5-star vacation? No. But if I feel like I need to go and get my nails done because that might help make me feel better, I can go and do that if I want to.
Yeah.
So it's the sense of contentedness, but still realizing that if I got myself into it, there's still more to receive. There's no limit on how much we can be.
No. And I find one of the great things uh, about, maybe it's my age, maybe it was COVID, maybe it was downsizing, but I'm not looking for anyone's approval. I'm not, I'm writing the book because I've had an interesting life and people want to know, how did it happen? And what I'm getting out of the book is an awareness of how I've changed through the years in my thinking, right? And one of the things I love right now is not being invested in judgments of others, right?
Isn't it
They
just
don't
freeing?
they don't have to like the garden, and they don't have to like the house or the dinner. Uh,
They don't have to
it's
go
nice.
with you.
It's nice to have people say, "Oh, this is beautiful. You've done a great job. Thank you. Oh, the meal is really good. Thank you." I think if I have somebody over who doesn't say anything about the house, the dinner, that's their last visit.
Well, I think that's just an alignment thing.
Yeah,
Probably don't want to come back either.
right, right.
And I think,
So,
with the letting go of judgment, we come more into alignment of what is for us, the people, the places, the experiences, the dogs, the cats, all of it. We come into alignment where we can celebrate more than being worried about how other people think.
Ray said this is an important, you're going to want to talk about the moon. And is there something special going on with the moon right now?
Um, I think we're just about to, when we might have just gone through a new moon, but the
Yeah,
season is coming. We're about to have eclipses in October. I think at the end of this month into October, we have 2 eclipses coming.
yeah.
Yeah, but
And
August was a big month for moons.
Haley, tell me, why is an eclipse significant other than the interest of it? You
Um,
know,
the stories, the narratives around the eclipses are interesting. You know,
yeah,
we have to, we have a few minutes, so I'll try and keep this simple. Eclipses are events that are so much bigger than us. They're so much bigger than a telescope. They're so much bigger than NASA. And we have to look at what actually happens with an eclipse. Either, the moon is in front of the sun, or there's like this placement of these massive entities of solid material that move and go in between things and change how we perceive things here on Earth. So I think
yeah,
just having that basic sense of awesomeness is first. Then we have to remember that, in the physics of the solar system, Earth is just one planet. And all of those planets are codependent yet independent. So if the moon and the sun are super close, that's going to impact our lives. Because the sun gives us all of this energy during the day. It heats up the earth. We're so connected to the sun. Equally, we're so connected to the moon from gravity, water. So it's a matter of being able to just ask the question, how big is this? And is it possible that I could be affected by it?
yeah. I love the explanation. Sometimes when people talk about the moon and its placement, I get lost. I don't. But when you talked about how all of these things are beyond us, and remind us really of our little teeny presence in this vast universe, is humbling. And and it makes embarrassment unimportant.
I think it's very humbling and it's awesome, can be overwhelming. I think we could all do with a little less embarrassment and more humbling.
More humbling.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think we could all, and I'm saying we, including me, could accept humility a little bit more often.
Yeah.
And to really bring ourselves into that state of humility and to realize that we are this small. It doesn't mean that we're powerless, but that's literally how much power we have in this vastness of the world and the vastness of the solar system. And I think sometimes we have to kind of just take a step back and take into account what we're saying, how we're saying it, how we're behaving, and make sure that we're humble about it. We're not making.
Yeah, the one thing that helps me is realizing obscurity, that very few of us are going to be recorded in history, and being recorded in history isn't necessarily a good thing. Hitler's remembered in history. His name will never, ever, ever be forgotten, because of his behaviors, of what he put into motion. But Haley and Brian aren't going to be. We do good work. We try to impact the world in a positive way. We try to grow ourselves to our full potential. And it's not going to matter that no one knows our names.
Nope. It just matters that I know who I am.
Matters that you know who you are, and it matters that you're committed to being whatever. I feel a commitment to be of service. I've felt it since I was little. To be a healer. Seriously, since I was little. And that's not something you admit to friends as you're growing up, because it sounds, oh, well,
Noxious.
let's all kneel in front of Brian as he heals us. You're afraid of that kind of response, so you keep it to yourself. But I think loving kindness is healing.
I think just being yourself as loving kindness, that's all we're asked. That's all we're asked. And sometimes we have, and I know we're out of time, but sometimes we have these huge personalities that are recorded in history simply to remind us of what's important. Simply to bring in some humility to say, I think you're getting a little bit big here. Just on what it is that you're meant to do.
Yeah. The input you get from others is nice, but it doesn't change the fact of who you are.
No, and God willing, I hope we get to the point where we're actually saying it to ourselves more and more before other people say it to us. So when other people say it to us, more just like a thank you, move on.
Right. I don't need a compliment of my dinner to know myself that it's good.
Yeah.
That I did a good job.
Now it's good. Even though I enjoyed it, now it's good. But I do think we're out of time, lovely Brian. It was lovely chatting with you today.
And I love talking with you.
And I wish you good luck with your puppy adventures, with your land shark.
Yeah, by the time...
You guys might want to get gloves.
They have little things they tell you to do, like walk away and, say ouch and whatever. Well, but I'm never going to say ouch to our conversations. I love them, and I look forward to talking to you in a couple of weeks. Lots of love to you, and we'll speak soon. Thanks, honey.
Bye.
Love you. Bye-bye.